Welcome to Conversations with Mr. A. This is your host, Anthony Abastilla, school counselor here at Chimacum Junior and Senior High. I'll be interviewing students, staff, community members, outside community members, hoping to provide them a voice to share their perspectives and insights. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Mr. A. This is your host, Anthony Abastilla, and today I am with Mr. Brett Thomsen, our very own science teacher. Mr. Thomsen, thank you so much for being here this week.
Thank you for having me. Go ahead.
So, okay, one thing, as I met you earlier this year, one thing I learned is that you are a part of the service, and the first thing I want to start off is thank you so much for your service. Thank you for serving our country, putting the years in. What branch were you in, and how many years were you in?
I was in the U.S. Navy. I was discharged as a first-class mechanic on a nuclear submarine from the nuclear division, machinist mate, first class.
How was the experience?
It was one of the most incredible learning experiences in my life. The technology was just mind-blowing. The amount of work that we did for our education was continuous over the 6 years I served. We went to school. Every time we came into port, we'd go to school. The entire off crew, which is 2 to 3 months for, usually 6 to 8 hours a day.
Wow. Any big highlights that stuck out during those 6 years?
Damage control, exercises over at Refit in Bangor, where they would first drown you.
For real?
You do a flooding exercise where all the pipes start throwing water into the space. The SEAL team's hanging out on the top. And the first time through, they would always make you fail. And then the next time you'd barely be able to control the flooding and survive. But you'd have to go into emergency breathing apparatus.
Were they doing that just try to toughen people up, or how did they do that?
Well, it's just part of submarine duty, damage control school, and as a mechanic, your job is to be able to handle damage control and fire training and air conditioning, refrigeration schools, lots and lots of schools.
Okay, wow. So between the military and teaching, did you have any other careers in between? Anything you did?
Well, I've been working since I was 6 years old, starting in the fields, working in the strawberry fields and berry fields as a kid. And I was a national park ranger for 5 seasons during the summers as a school teacher. I drove school bus. I was a floor guard in a roller skating rink.
Oh, wow.
I've done a lot of crazy things.
Wow. That sounds like it. Quite a bit of things. So I'm curious, what originally attracted you to the field of teaching?
It was my wife's fault.
Oh, okay.
I was an engineering student, and she saw that I liked people more than I liked studying. Not a good thing for a teacher, probably. But we decided we could have summers off. She was a college professor, and so I became a science teacher. And when I went to school in Missouri, I really loved history. And they would say, "Hey, boy, you gonna play football? You coach football?" No. I see all this science stuff you got. We really need science and math teachers. And this is in Missouri. So if you weren't a football coach, you couldn't be a history teacher.
Sounds like a little bit of peer pressure.
Just a bit. But I love science anyway, and it really kind of has become my calling. So
awesome. Now, how long have you been here in Chimacum?
Well, this is my second time around. I came here from 2002 to 2008, and I then went abroad and taught internationally for 12 years. And during COVID, we decided to come back to the States, and I've been here for the last 3 years now.
Wow. So, curious, from 2002 to 2008, and then the last 3 years, I'd imagine the school was different as far as, buildings, the staff.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay. From 2002 to 2008, I came in. It was kind of a rough school at the beginning, and over the next 6 years, the science program and the science department at the high school was outstanding, and I was in the middle school. And we had science Olympiad teams, and our Olympiad team from '02 to '08, went to the state tournament like 5 times. And my last year, we had both the middle school and the high school team at the state tournament. And 6 of those students have become PhDs since then in that last year. So
that you've got to have some pride. I mean, at the PhDs, be like,
kids,
okay.
The kids have some pride. They make me feel great about what I get to do as an educator. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. You just mentioned you came back in the last few years. Mm-hmm. I would imagine when you came back, it had to be a little bit different. Kind of, maybe?
Well, during COVID, we were teaching remotely, and that was horrible. I cannot say that I am a fan. Definitely don't like distance learning. I'm a hands-on guy, and it was really tough and challenging with the sanitation requirements to do labs and have a space and have equipment and deal with that all the time.
Was it hard to get the students' attention? Like, I would imagine if you're doing the Zoom meetings and
remotely, you could get them, and I had some really great conversations with some of the kids, but you would maybe get to see 20% of their faces because a lot of them wouldn't turn on their cameras, and
that would be easy to do.
Just really, really challenging.
Oh, okay. You just mentioned just a few minutes ago that you studied, you went abroad, you taught abroad. Between the military, how many countries have you visited? Because I remember you mentioned you've been quite a bit.
Well, I've visited 42. I've lived in 5. My wife's lived in 7. I've lived in 8 U.S. states. I worked in Alaska fishing for a summer in the canneries. And this past summer, I did research in Africa, helping do a census of large mammals.
So out of the states and the countries you've been, what were some of your favorite places you've visited or been?
Well, my favorite thing to do during my off time is always doing safaris in remote locations, either U.S. or internationally. I love going out and seeing wildlife in its natural setting. My favorite country to live in was Croatia. I lived there for 5 years, and the Croatian coast is just phenomenal. I love the mass transit systems and not requiring a car. I actually use mass transit here in Port Townsend, which is a pretty neat little trick. But I'm also here at 6:30 in the morning. It adds about an extra hour and a half to my commute a day. But I listen to books.
There you go, audiobooks. Good way to go. Croatia, how are the people like over there? I'm curious. The students, how was the environment?
Okay, very friendly, very privileged. All the schools I taught at internationally were, 2 of them were national capitals, and we were supporting the embassy and the expatriate community. So I had somewhere between 30 to 50 different ambassadors' kids, and a couple of president's children. In Barcelona and India, we were supporting consular services, but they were the expat community. So our students' parents were paying $20,000 to $30,000 a year to go to our school.
Wow.
So we were pretty high stress, but we also had IB, the International Baccalaureate, and sometimes they would force me into the IB where I'd have to teach international IB biology, chemistry, math studies.
I'm curious, I mentioned students were a little privileged, and you just kind of gave descriptions. Did it show with their attitudes? Did it make them any more or less motivated? Did it make them feel like, oh, they coasted? I'm just...
Most of the kids were awesome. The parents could be a pressure cooker sometimes. When I was in Barcelona as the department chair of the science department there, the community is building something called ITER in South France. ITER is the new fusion reactor, and some of my students' parents were on the discovery team of the Higgs boson. So there was some real pressure in the community to have a very advanced science program. But it was cool.
Nice. Okay. just generally, I'm wondering, as a teacher, so you've taught for a number of years, what's your general philosophy as a teacher, just teaching students in general?
My general philosophy is today is the day the student is going to be the student I want them to be. And every day is kind of a new possibility. If the kid had a really bad day, or maybe I had a bad day the day before, I try and come in with a fresh face going, okay, today's the day. And I try all sorts of different modalities of engagement and try and give as many different opportunities to have the kids touch something that is science that they've never thought of as science before.
Did you have any special highlights as a teacher, whether it's here in Chimacum or other places? Highlights in the sense of, okay, memorable moments, something where it's some memories that really stuck out.
Getting shaved by the Science Olympiad team here at Chimacum.
No way.
What happened? They shaved my beard into an Amish beard.
Oh.
They won the right because I told them if the middle school and the high school qualified for the state tournament, they could shave me in front of the student body. That was kind of a highlight.
When was that? A few years ago?
08.
08, okay.
Another highlight is starting the cross-country team in Holden, Missouri. Another highlight would be the NISA Virtual Science and Engineering Fair, which became an engineering fair because I pushed the professor in Israel to adopt it. It was just a science fair. And I said, well, my kids do engineering more than we do just plain science. And the next year we converted it into a science and engineering fair. And my students ended up in the top 5 for like 5 or 6 consecutive years.
Wow.
On an international science fair between 40 or so international schools.
Impressive. Very impressive. One thing I know here at school, you have your reputation for ties. I've seen quite a collection of neckties. How many neckties do you have? Can you tell me about?
I have over 60.
Wow.
Some of them have been in my collection since my first year of teaching. I have a standing thing where I wear a different tie every day for the first 3 to 4 months of school. And when the day gets to a repeat day, I'll bake the kids cookies for the kid that notices the tie that gets repeated.
Has anyone caught it so far this year?
That was caught this year in December by one of my SEL students who has me in the first class of the day and knew instantly when I wore the repeat tie and told me which day I wore the other one. So it was like, okay, you got me.
Sharp. Man, pretty sharp on that. Nice. Okay, so here's a fun part I like to do. It's called word association. And so I'm going to give a word or two, and then just give me the first thing that comes in your mind, or just immediate thoughts that come in. This is a running joke. I share this every podcast. People know here in the school I have a dislike for pickles. And so my first word is going to be pickles. Your first thought.
Horseradish.
Okay. Science.
Awesome.
Okay. Spider-Man.
Weird.
Batman?
Dark.
Okay. Science fiction movies.
Science future movies.
Okay. Football.
Soccer?
Okay. Okay. Summer.
Kayaking, boating, hiking.
Awesome. Winter?
Snow. Love the mountains.
Coffee.
Oh, addiction.
Want to tell you always thank you too. Sometimes you've dropped over some coffee and made some of the best coffee. Thank you. Appreciate that. Flowers.
Love them and give them often when I could. In Europe, it was really easy because the little old ladies, the babushkas would be out on the street and you could go for $2-3 and buy a bouquet of flowers.
Cool. Hygiene.
Shower every morning.
Okay. And last one, top student.
Too many to list.
Cool. Great. So last thing is, any final words or anything you want to tell our listeners?
The students are our hope. We have to convince the students to believe in science and their ability to control the future, because right now we're on the cusp of losing control of the future due to technology, and it's fast approaching artificial intelligence, yada. We've got to get these kids out there more prepared.
All right. Mr. Thomsen, thank you so much for doing this interview. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this week's edition of Conversations with Mr. A, featuring Mr. Thomsen. He says some really profound words at the very end, I really believe, about students. Students truly represent the future, and I really think they represent the future of our society. Mr. Thomsen, really, really great insights, great man, a lot of life experiences. It was a pleasure to have him this week. He might be someone who might do another interview in the future. We'll see. Anyways, stay tuned for another edition of Conversations with Mr. A coming up next week.